You are listening to Pacific Beer Chat. We are a collective of West Coast beer bloggers sharing our opinions on events, issues, and well-crafted brews. We discuss both local and international issues and aim to educate and entertain. We are a part of the Hopped Up Network. This week's episode talks about doing beer verticals. A beer vertical, for those that don't know, is comparing multiple vintages of the same beer to see how they change over time. For this episode, we had 4 vintages of Unibroue Grande Reserve 17 out of Quebec. Before we get started, here is a promo from the Hopped Up Network.
Hopped Up Network is a group of independent beer podcasts devoted to providing insight into our local craft beer communities. You can visit hoppedupnetwork.com to hear more podcasts like this one.
Are you a discerning beer drinker? Do you drink beer for the tastes of blackcurrant and old leather? Can you tell the difference between Simcoe and Citra hops, despite whatever type of beer you might be drinking? Yeah, sorry, that's not this podcast. You want to listen to somebody else. We here at the Speak Podcast do regular beer for regular people. Joe's Six-Pack Beer at Joe's Six-Pack Taste. That's Rob, Adam, and Pete, proud members of the Hopped Up Network. 3 guys, 2 beers, 1 show.
Thanks to Pete86 for the 4-star review on iTunes. This is what he had to say. Great guests and a wealth of knowledge. In the US, it's fun to hear the reviews and lingo from up north to find the similarities and differences. If you like our show, please leave a review and we will read it on the air just like this. Today's episode included Carnell of Breward Inlet, Mike, the Beer Raider, Steve and Mike of Mike's Craft Beer, Chelsea from Beautiful British Columbia, and special guests Kevin, the Beard Show, and Lundy of Pink Pints. Enjoy. All right, today's episode is on Unibroue's Grande Reserve 17.
Yay!
We've got 4 vintages, 2013, 14, 15, and 16. If you look back at our episode 4 way back, we talked about cellaring beer. We mentioned doing verticals. So this is our first episode doing a vertical.
Although it's laid out horizontally.
Yes, you were correct.
Unless you're sitting where I'm sitting.
Oh. So this beer is a Belgian strong dark ale made in Quebec, 10% alcohol. They barrel age it and then they bottle condition it. So let's crack these bottles open.
Are we going to do like 1, 2,
Poppin'
3,
bottles.
or
It
like,
would be great if we could. 1, 2,
That's how I want to do it.
3.
Is that how we're doing it?
13 didn't blow, but
Ooh, look at that guy. He's smoked.
Ready to go.
ooh, Jesus.
It's okay.
That was almost a no shit moment.
You got this. Pop it.
That was
That
nice.
one actually
Love it.
that had a little gusto behind it.
All right.
There was gusto behind number 4.
So don't forget the order. The first one here is the 2013. This is a 752, so there's lots of it. But you just don't want to forget because the idea is to compare how they age.
Oh, you losing it?
Oh!
Rookie.
No, it's the
Delicious.
plastic glasses. They're
It's a
No, it is. And you know what?
Totally.
It
It's
is the
because
plastic
they're
glasses.
quite cracked because we do
Oh,
wine
yeah.
tastings because we have a vineyard. So they've been used and washed
would
quite a
you
bit.
use- You have a vineyard?
Oh, where's your
I want a vineyard.
How does one acquire such a place?
Yeah, I'd like to
Is that at the
Yeah, I live
local
on a
5 and
vineyard
dime?
right now, and my parents have a vineyard, but we grow grapes for Wild Goose Wines.
Oh, I like
Yeah.
Wild Goose.
Yeah. Argument for glass versus plastic, right? Because the plastic is so cracked.
So, like, have you ever been told off for saying a swear, or just got the weird
Say
look
a
up for?
swear.
Well, no, like you're talking with your friends and someone swears, and you look over, and the kid with a toddler's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?"
The toddler.
And they
Alright,
go,
the guy-
poopy. Oh,
Are you in
poopy.
Surrey?
Hey man, I live in Surrey.
I know. I grew
my
up in
goodness.
Surrey.
I left.
Nothing wrong with Surrey.
Well,
I don't know
I
about
was
that.
say there's nothing wrong with it.
Nothing.
There's a couple things, to say the least.
In the Okanagan, we make fun of Surrey. We hardly know
Right?
anything about the Lower Mainland, and we still make fun of Surrey.
In Japan, they made it.
In Hawaii, they made fun of it too.
We make fun of Poco
You
in
know
Fort
what?
Moody.
Fuck you guys.
Oh, it says
Don't
Surrey.
think you're in South.
Kind of expected that from
You're in
you.
South Surrey, so it's
Yeah, you
it's
see
going
Violet,
on.
watch out.
South of the tracks.
There you go.
There's tracks.
There's this really new invention. It's called trains.
Yeah, but like what kind of train?
Like a train.
Like yeah, but
Not the sky
like a sky train or like a train
A sky train
or a
is a
miniature
development
train?
upon the steam engine.
Canada was built on
Yeah.
trains.
And immigrant labor.
Beer? Train?
And stolen land.
Is Sheldon here?
The leading cause.
Yes, too bad he isn't here.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, so getting
that
on
note-
course.
Yes.
This is beer not from
Yeah.
Surrey.
Might edit that out.
Well, probably not. As beers age, they change and they can get more complex. And as long as they're done well, things will age right. If they're done improperly, then you can get some really off flavors. These will be fine. But good save. No, this brewery's been doing this for a long time. Unibroue's.
Well, they know what they're doing.
known.
Whoa.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah, they know
Is
what
that
they're
you're trying to
doing,
tell
yes.
us?
But there can be, like from, dropping a beer or something.
Oh, yeah.
Even if these ones are corked and caged, which makes sure that they're well cared for, or at least in terms of the
theory.
bottle. In theory. But you could drop a cap bottle or something,
Oh, yeah.
and air could get in. And
break.
Hey,
yeah.
I'm curious. Like, I don't know. Wine gets corked, right? Because of bacteria that are in the cork. Does that ever happen to corked beers? Do you know this?
Oh yeah, it happens.
Yeah, because I've never actually really heard much
I've
about
had
that.
I've
Yeah.
had
You have a
my
corked
share
beer.
of cork beers.
Oh.
Oh yeah, it does exist.
Probably shouldn't buy them.
It's usually tall ships is a good example. They were one of the original breweries that happened in Vancouver Island. They came out with an amazing lineup of barley wines.
Yeah.
You put it
They all
past
smell
that
good.
year.
Cheers.
Yeah,
20
cheers.
years too many.
2013.
Yeah,
20.
that's the first
What
year.
year is it?
Where am I?
Okay,
I'm having an existential crisis here.
What happened? Did anything happen?
we're
in
going back
2013?
in time.
Yeah, starting back and moving to
So
the
wait, what? Oh, never mind.
2013.
13, 14,
Yeah.
15, 16?
What happened?
Where was I?
So it's
Still living in Victoria. Those were good times. Simpler times, some would say.
it's a fairly
Some.
fairly sweet aroma.
Sorry.
Oh, it's quite sweet.
Yeah, I mean it's got that Belgian characteristic, so it's got the fruit in it. I can also speak.
It's oaky.
Yeah.
I get a little oaky pokey.
Okie
Okie
pokey.
Do the
pokey.
okey
Well,
pokey.
gee, it's aged with French oak.
There you go.
Hey!
Someone's got a palate.
What's up?
I think the only
Palate
real
what?
palates over here.
The rest of us just want to drink to get drunk.
Yeah, this is a good beer.
I think it tastes like I'm getting wasted.
Just drink.
Tastes like waste.
But, it smells. It smells really good.
It's I get like dark fruit, and then almost like when you use that dark fruit in what's it called, like a caramelized pastry. Does that make sense?
Caramelized
Jam?
pastry? You don't caramelize pastry.
No, but like some of the insides of a pastry might be
Yeah, like
caramelized.
jam?
I'm not a baker.
Yeah, I'd say it almost is jammy or
Do I
whatever.
look like
Like
a
you're talking about
patisserie?
jam here, right?
What's that?
Jam.
Yeah, I don't know.
Put
Maybe.
jam in pastries.
I don't know.
Listen, I have not baked since home ec.
You should bake.
You should bake.
So like what? 2 years ago? No.
It's his first facial hair. Right?
Hey,
6 months growth.
it would be better
But
if
no,
it was
this is-
true.
This is enjoyable. It's
Really
super.
enjoyable.
Are we just drinking the 13?
Yeah.
At the start, like I'm gonna make sure that I leave a bit so I can compare them all. But
I just had a
like-
sip of all of them, and I can't tell the difference.
You don't admit that
don't
on the
admit
podcast.
I'm also
Never
I'm
admit
warming up
that.
the glasses as I sip them and
again-
talk about them
I'm gonna
because they are a
put it
bit
in my
cold.
crock.
These are also meant to be warm. Yeah,
That's actually true. I should.
that's a huge.
Oh, that's cold.
Remember that episode complaining about brewery beer serving temps?
Yeah,
That's like this.
episode serving time.
It's their own damn fault.
Step
Song
one.
about that?
Get yourself some air conditioning.
So you need air conditioning in the winter.
Yeah.
Heating.
Hey, this is free.
It's HVAC.
I guess we can't complain.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Armin, I'm going to talk to you, Armin. Come Monday.
Yeah.
What the fuck are you doing to
He's
us?
sitting there. Somewhere there's a camera. He's like,
As soon as we leave, turns the heat up.
He's in front of his fireplace right now. He's on his cell phone.
Probably. So what does everyone else think about the 13?
it's good.
Nice.
It is sweet, yes. Yeah.
It's sweet.
Good fruit
Yeah.
to it.
It's got the sweetness closer to a triple But
Yeah.
without being, I find triples almost sickeningly sweet a lot of times for me.
Really?
And this isn't there.
Triple shouldn't be.
Triples are my least favorite of the Belgian styles.
See, I like the
Really?
triples the
Quads are the
most.
best.
You need to go to Belgium.
Belgian.
No, I'm talking like Belgian triples. I don't like Belgian triples. I've had
Because
Belgian.
I almost, that's what I would go to on the menu. And I was
Me too.
Quads and doubles. all the way.
I'll stay away from the quads and the doubles.
Quads-
The
quads
doubles and the
weren't that
quads,
common.
I like go for the triples because
Oh, really?
they're the ones that actually have the more of the hop forward. They a little bit, usually have more bitterness to them.
Honestly, I've
So-
used this.
Can you remind me of what the difference is between a double, triple, and a quad?
Well, a double and a quad are definitely more malt forward, less hop forward.
Yeah.
And the
Triple's
triple is using more malt, or sorry, using more hops. I mean, it's usually the sass, it's usually
almost
but
comes
it's they're lighter in color, usually lighter in body and flavor, and usually less sweet.
So I think I like quads, but I can't
Quads are
remember.
usually have the four of them, or the one that's it's going to have the most. It's going to have the best body. It's going to be a full body, full flavor, lots of caramel.
Yeah.
You know, like brown sugar, all that kind of stuff.
Which this has a bit of that too. It's
Yeah.
kind of, this is,
But again, we're drinking them cold,
yeah.
and that's where.
I'm trying to warm them
the
up a
shame.
bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean
You
that's
should be
unfortunate.
Damn shame.
Well, it's
Doesn't take much to warm them up.
But I
Rub them
can't
together.
speak to the style as well as you guys can. It's like Belgian is Belgian. I mean, beyond that,
No, it's not.
beyond well, it's not. But to me, I don't know much beyond like those fruity esters. But this aged one seems, like you said, more complex. Or that complexity is there, but it's sort of more accessible complexity because I feel like it's mellowed a bit.
Yeah.
But when you have these beers with these really interesting yeasts and the malt choice is really interesting as well, for lack of a better word. But when you get them young, it's just like punches in your mouth, I feel, of flavor. And this sort of lets you it settles on your tongue, and you can sort of get those you can really understand those more dynamic flavors
Yeah.
more easily when it's aged.
Because I've also taken a sip of the 14 now, and the 14 does have more flavor, but it is a little.
It's harder to pick things out.
harsher. It's a little, not much.
This one dances on my tongue.
There's a
This
little
one's
more caramel. There's a little more
almost brown sugar or
In
something.
the in the 14 or in the.
In the 14.
Oh, yeah.
Getting a little more like actual sugar, molasses, caramel flavors. Right? It's pulling a little back from the fruit.
the 14 is big to me, especially
I'm
going
actually
from the
getting a little
13.
herb, just a little bit like celery or something in the back there, which I actually think is kind of cool.
Interesting.
Celery?
Yeah.
I like celery.
Are you kidding? What's the point of eating something that makes you more tired than when you were before?
So you don't eat turkey then?
Keep my favorite.
Figures are overrated.
Everyone's in shape. Just depends which one.
Round is a shape.
Yes, exactly.
I'd actually be really interested to know what the malt bill is on this type of beer.
This is
I
a
don't know if it does. Well, they won 3 consecutive international platinum medals for best dark ale in the world.
I buy that.
It is. I'm having a hard time between the two, telling the difference.
So 13 and 14 are very similar.
Oh, really? I do
Okay.
get a.
I find 13 and 14 are similar, and then the 15 and 16 are similar, but there's this break point between the two.
I haven't got past the 14
note,
yet.
Yeah, nor have I.
The 14 is.
I just
very
got
little
interested.
difference, but I
There's
do-
a little bit, but it's subtle.
It's
is
very
very
subtle.
subtle
You have to
between
be looking for it.
13 and 14. I mean, you
And I
get
mean, it might all be in my
you can see
head,
different,
like-
but there's
Yeah.
difference in color.
Yep.
A little bit.
Definitely is. So it's a little bit more malt forward.
Taking a sip of 15, there is a lot more wood in that. Like it's
Yeah.
it's a lot
It's
more oaky.
these
Yeah.
the younger two are, yeah, it's you definitely taste it, but it seems like there's a definite
Weird.
break point.
And it's
Yeah,
almost
that is
Right?
much
the
more-
woodiness is
I took them
almost
all
on
to
this.
second, like try to warm up my.
Yeah.
How about you?
13. I've only got to the 14, and the 13
Yeah.
and 14 are very similar. Both very sweet.
Just have a sip of
Try
it.
a sip of the 15 then.
It's interesting.
You know what? When I had the sip of the 15, I'm getting a little bit more like caramel in the aftertaste. Like it's
But
just it's
right
a
up
bit
front,
more.
it's woody.
Yeah, it's actually really coming through a lot more.
But just like the finish, I guess it's maybe it's also the alcohol. It's just like a little bit of a warmth with the caramel in the 15.
And I've warmed all mine up a bit, and they are more flavorful now.
How did you warm them up? Tell us.
With your hands.
It's not working.
Put them in his beard.
Well, there you go.
There we go.
Let me just borrow your beard.
Just wrap it in there.
Yeah, exactly. Need some beard wax just to hold him in there.
Actually, that'd be great for the beard competition. They do one at the cannery every year in Penticton.
They do one at
Just
Strange
like
Fellows
have like
too
a-
coming
Oh,
up.
that's right,
So
they're
you
working
go
on
to
that.
So they asked me to be a judge.
Me too,
That
yeah.
one. Okay.
Celebrity judges.
Yeah.
Nice.
For which one,
Cheers,
Strange
celebrity
Fellows?
judges. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I come?
You might need
You can perform
fake-
the age 16 and under.
You can judge the craft juice category.
And then, wow, I just took a sip of 16 and like, there is tons of the barrel character.
Yeah.
Like it's not even the same beer as the 14 or 13.
See, I'm gonna try end to end here. That's not a sexual. That's
Again, very different.
it's wild.
Is
Yeah.
it?
It's
it
funny
really?
because
Yeah.
Or I
yeah,
see
exceptionally
people
different.
drinking wine like you go to wine festivals and like, oh, I can really get that aged leather. I'm like, what? It just tastes like red fucking wine.
Well, with wine, I agree. But no, I mean, I really like 13. 14 is really good. 15 still quite tasty. 16, I think, needs a year.
Yeah, it's less tasty.
Yeah, it's
Technical term.
less tasty.
Less
yeah.
tasty.
I mean, it's still
Less
a good
aged.
beer. But I mean,
I don't know.
with drinking them all four side by side, I don't enjoy it as much. If I hadn't had these ones, I'd probably still really enjoy it.
What's the bit that you don't like? Because I have an
Well-
opinion on the bit that I don't like on the 16.
For me, it's just too woody without having some other barrel characteristic in there. It's just a little more harsh.
I just noted too, like if you taste the 13 and the 16, like just the difference in like viscosity in the
Yeah.
body,
Yeah.
right? Like
Wait, 13,
the 16 is just like pretty thin still. It hasn't really condensed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
But like I said, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just putting them side by side with these. Every year gets better, in my opinion, of these four.
Doesn't always happen.
Well,
No, it doesn't.
It makes sense though, right? Because if you're a brewer and you're trying to put together a beer, and it's a big beer,
Yeah.
you know, your intention is to have that beer sit for a while. So you have to build some flavors bigger than others.
Yeah.
6 months in, a year in. So when it comes time 2 or 3 years from now, or whenever that peaks, whenever you're hoping to get those things to sort of balance out, you know, the earliest point is going to be when they're most out of whack. And somewhere along the line, be it 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 year, they will all come together
Yeah.
as best they can and peak. But I mean, it totally stands to reason that the newest one is necessarily not the best one.
I mean, some bourbon barrel aged beers are really harsh when they're first released.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's some of the best beers I've had 6
Well-
months down the road, a year down the road.
Moody Ale's Russian Imperial is one I really love, and I
Yeah.
find 6 months to a year, which is relatively, I think,
Short?
early.
Yeah.
Yeah, for those beers, that's when it sort of peaks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
for
actually
me, at
start
least.
doing a vertical of that soon.
I hit
But-
2 or 3.
I did Singularity. I did a vertical from day one
Mm-hmm.
because I actually had one bottle left of the original, and there was 5 of us. So last fall, you know, my buddies from R&B, so we all did it. We actually found, aside from the first 2, which were amazing, the best one was the recent one that was released last year.
Yeah, well,
It was so amazing.
I don't know, there is something to that. Sometimes fresh is
Yeah.
best.
yeah.
And it just worked. It just, the flavor, everything about it was just so much better than some of the years before. And you really expected it differently.
One thing that people do wrong, I think, is if you're going to sell a beer, you should really at least buy 2 bottles.
Yeah.
Drink one fresh. 'Cause if it's great, just friggin' drink it.
Well,
Unless you're doing something like this, you're trying to build a vertical, but you should always have one fresh. You should know what it tastes
Always.
like fresh.
Yeah.
I'll often, well, maybe not often, but occasionally.
Well, maybe not
Once in a
occasionally,
while.
but-
Those weekdays.
If you buy a bottle and you drink it and it's good, but something about it makes you think like, okay, it's a little too harsh, it's a little too robust. I go out and buy another one and let it sit for probably 6 months to a year. Although it usually doesn't last that long in my house, but
You try, though, right?
you try.
You gotta get a
But
closet that you don't
You let it
use.
sit for some time, and it's like, oh, this is a tasty little son of a gun.
I've been buying
That's
beer
your new
like this on
rating
my
system.
cellar
I want to
rating
see
as
that. I
well.
want to see that for aged beers. The top rating is
Top
top,
rating is
tasty little son of a gun.
Yeah.
No, the next level up is tasty little son of a bitch. Right?
Well, actually, I found it really interesting. So one of the guys that is with Camera South Okanagan, he was talking to us about somebody who bought a case of oh man, it's something from Torchlight out of Nelson. I can't remember which one it was. But he bought a case, and so then what he did is he did like
Oh, the Gruit.
The Gruit, maybe.
The Gruit,
he
yes.
tracked out of the case like the flavors. So on a spreadsheet, every time he opened one, I think he opened one every few months. Just like track, and he said there's actually like a there's a cycle of flavors, so it's not just like a curve. It actually goes up and then down. So
That's cool.
So they change, like even from like, you know, like it might be in like one flavor category, and then 6 months later the taste changes to a different category. And it's not just like a smooth curve, right?
Okay, that's really cool.
My first bottle of that beer, I was kind of like, although I'm not a huge fan of Gruits, my first bottle was like, it's okay. Second bottle I had a year later was really, really good. And it was from the same vintage. And it was just, it does this.
Just how that chance is sitting.
Well, I find that so interesting because you go to, a restaurant with wine, or you talk to a winery, and
Never done that before.
they have their sommeliers, and so the sommelier program is years older than the Cicerone, but they know specifically, or they can guess within 1 or 2 years when this wine will peak. I feel we're not there with beer. There's more research, there's more knowledge that we need to gain in order to, you know, a brewer will brew a beer and be like, you know what, in 6 years, this is where you're going to want to drink this beer. And so that's what I find really interesting. And you're starting to see breweries like
Best After
Strange
Days.
Fellows.
Yeah.
They now have a vintage bottle list at their tasting room. I think that's amazing. That's really cool that they had the foresight to hold back bottles to create this program, and I hope they keep that going up. And you know, say 10, 20 years from now, they could have this huge range. Like you go to Belgium and there's lists you can get a 20-year-old
or even Hair of the Dog in Portland has that too.
Anywhere like
Dead Frog has that, but that's because people don't buy it so much.
They didn't mean to.
It wasn't on purpose.
Collect experiences, not things. Whatever the fuck that means.
But Vancouver Island did that for Hermione.
You should do their marketing.
That's what they say. Nothing goes down like a cold dead frog, but also collect experiences, not things. What?
Don't collect those dead frogs.
Well, I think beer is tough too, right? Because beer is, I don't know. I don't drink wine, so
I've tried. I've tried. Fucking freezing.
You look great on camera, though.
Yeah, you're dead in the center. You're like, oh, it's warm in here.
It's hot.
Give me a fucking parka.
Grow your beard longer.
Come on.
Grow your beard.
Use it as a scarf.
I'm comfortable in here.
Like, you know, I understand, man.
But I think people, I mean,
Don't have enough time.
wine appreciation has definitely existed longer than beer appreciation. And I can't speak to wine. I don't know anything about wine. I know there's red, there's white, and sometimes there's that in between one.
There's rosés.
Sure. And but like when people come in to drink beer, beer is for still so many people a big discovery, right? Like, oh shoot, this beer tastes totally different. And beer, it ranges. We have our 3.5% radlers to our big barley wines to these beers that we're drinking right now, the Belgians. So people say, they start getting into beer and they say, well, do I drink this fresh or do I drink this? Do I age this?
Yeah.
And it's if anyone who's worked in a brewery, it's a really difficult question to answer. Right up there with, I like hoppy beers. And like, what the hell do you mean you like hoppy beers?
But most brewers are going to know if their beer needs to sit for a bit. I mean, a true brewer will know that.
But it's a really tough question when you get, should beer be had fresh or should beer be had aged? Because it depends on every different type of beer.
What do you like?
Yeah.
What do you like about beer?
Are you looking for those big, robust, dark beers? Yeah, I give that some time to sit. Depending on the beer or that vintage or whatever, that might change on what that beer is. But these parties are great. And I suppose if you have a friend who's like asking all these questions that are maybe annoying or maybe not, you just invite them to one of these and be like, they're different. They're different. All beers are different.
Just taste it, man. Well,
just drink it.
Just don't chug it, damn it.
What did they say yesterday? Because I was talking about, my uncle's a sommelier, and so he comes over and he's always like on about wine, and my dad and I are quite big fans of beer, even though my family makes wine. And so we had this argument about like what has more flavor, wine versus beer.
And we're like, beer.
Yeah, and we were like, dude, it's beer, right? But he doesn't really get it. My uncle doesn't really get it. So anyways,
do the math thing. Right?
We were talking to the school yesterday, and they said the isolated flavors in wine are what, like a couple
200 now?
And the isolated flavors in beer are like what, 2,000?
No, it's Yeah, I think it is 2000. Yeah.
Well, you just look at the
It's in the
number of
thousands,
variables. Like basically,
Ingredients.
with wine,
Wine has grapes.
there's
Grapes.
grapes.
And there's
Terroir.
yeast.
Terroir
There's
affects
yeast.
grapes. You pick your grape, you ferment it to simplify things,
Yeah.
and you get what you get. With beer, terroir affects hops. Terroir affects
Especially hops,
malts.
though. Especially hops.
There's the water content, which is
And
huge.
the type of water.
Yeah, type of
And the
water.
type of water. There's yeast. Every single one of these things can be varied, mixed,
Yeah.
changed, blended.
And
the
then
malts.
aged,
And
right?
aged.
You
Like-
get this really huge flavor wheel just for fresh beer, and then you put them
Yeah.
all in a cellar for 5 years, 10 years, 15
Yeah.
years, right? So
And
Yeah.
what type of cellars?
exactly.
Proper temperature.
Yeah.
And yeah, totally. I mean, the big one that I always find frustrating now is like we're talking about. I mean, there's scales too, like in terms of aging in beer. Like, we're obviously drinking these big, robust beers that have lots of flavors, and we're more or less, I feel like, saying that the bigger the beer and the more complex the beer, it can help to taste all those things with a little bit of aging. You know,
Yeah, for sure.
in some range. But now we're talking, now Northeast beers or Northeast IPAs are getting really big. And the whole idea is fresh. Like, I want to get that 2 hours after canning. I want to get that beer in me.
Yeah.
I want to trade it to my friends within a week. But at the same time, the more Northeast IPAs I try, and I've got a shit ton in my fridge, so many that I can't drink them all the time. And what I keep noticing is they still have peaks, right? The peak is not necessarily 2 hours after canning. It's not necessarily fresh is fresher than most beers,
Yeah.
but fresh, or the peak can be 2 weeks. It can be a month even. On those beers, and I think that's, every beer has its peak. Nobody knows where that peak is.
I think it's depending on what your peak is. Is the peak the balance between the malts and the hops? Is the peak the certain flavors that you're going to get from the hops before they start to degrade? Right? Like, because you can have like a fresh hop beer 3 months down the road when people say it's not fresh, but at some point you're like, oh, they had a really fantastic malt bill.
Yeah.
You didn't taste that a few months ago, right? So it's like, so what are we calling the peak? Really?
Right, and
What is that?
You're never gonna try every beer. Every bottle of that Sartori. No one's ever gonna get every bottle. No one's ever gonna be able to taste that one. Hour. So no one really knows. It's all subjective. But I hate these hard, fast rules that often come into play. Like, this beer needs to be 3 years. That Northeast IPA needs to be 2 hours. Like,
Yeah.
hold back.
That's 3 weeks
Enjoy
old.
your
I'm
beer.
not drinking that shit.
You hear that. You hear
do.
that. You hear, especially, I mean, Northeasts are all over Instagram, and, you see the joke videos of people pouring their beers out. Like, you're an idiot.
Fucking stupid. Drink it.
Drink it.
It's beer.
See what it tastes
may not be
like.
your best favorite
And
beer.
I mean, these beers are amazing. And we're sitting here, we're doing the vertical, and we're talking about like how, to me, honestly, the 2013 tastes the best.
That's
But
my
I,
feel as well. 2013, I think, is the best one so far.
right, but the 2017 I kind of
kinda
like
what
more
I
than
was thinking, too.
2016. I mean, who knows?
Nothing wrong with that.
Like
Yeah.
for me, the 15, it's got a little more wood, which I appreciate.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's clearly not
Mhm.
your criteria. That's what you say. It's subjective.
Yeah.
That's a whole
Totally.
other value that beer is so subjective that maybe I like this beer at 2 weeks, maybe you like the same beer at 2 years.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
As long as you're loving the beer
It's
or
beer. If you like it, fucking drink it.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
just that simple. If you
Sing
don't,
it,
I'll do
sister.
whatever. Finish it and don't order it again.
Yeah.
Who cares?
You got a point. Like,
Really, who cares?
Like, we sit here and go, oh, this one has more or brown sugar. This one has, and it's fun. I'm a huge nerd. I love this. But,
Yeah.
But to a certain extent,
I
do you
mean,
like
one
it?
day you might like it, one day you might not. So,
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
you know,
Do I
drink
feel like it right
If you like
now?
it, drink
Like-
it again. If you don't, fuck, who cares?
It's winter out. I want a big
Order it
beer.
again.
Don't pour it
But I
out.
want
That
this in
just
July.
No, don't pour it out.
Give it to a buddy.
Don't do that.
I see those
Have
I
friends.
see those social
Yeah.
media
Come
accounts
on.
where people are like, oh, this week I'm pouring out this beer. Well, you're stupid. And you just paid like $4 for that beer and you're just pouring it down the drain.
$4. I haven't paid $4 for beer in a long time.
Yeah, where are you buying
Yeah.
I
your
buy
beer?
beer.
Steal. Well, no, you get
The only
you
ones
get,
I
you get a
pour out
four
are
pack
ones
for
that are
$16.
seriously flawed and don't taste.
I will
good.
pour out beer, but I'll give it its fair share. I like to
Oh,
give it at
yeah.
least half a glass. And then I'm like, you know what?
I won't pour it out. I mean, I'll keep it and like
Keep it.
shit.
Keep
I mean,
feed
no,
it.
don't get me wrong,
Maybe
no.
they'll grow into something
Don't get me
better
wrong.
later.
Not like a half can, but I mean, if I order a 4-pack, if I get a
Yeah.
4-pack,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I'll
Oh,
keep
yeah,
like
yeah.
3 cans and somebody comes over. maybe like, hey, I like this beer. Let me drink it. Fuck, drink it.
Or you've had
have
like
all
15
three.
beers that night already. You're coming
Please
home
take
like,
it home.
oh,
No, I've got
I
the
thought
perfect
there was
example. Like I was extoded. That's what it is. Totally
Is that what it
extoded. We are how many beers deep? Anyways, I was excited for. I mean, I'm becoming a little bit of a dork. Anytime I see a 4-pack with a sticker label, I'm like, I'm in. And so Parallel 49 came out with that amalgamation, and I was like, great. These are a bunch of breweries I love. Except Parkside got left off, but
Were they part of it?
they were part of it. You didn't hear the story. So
No, I don't know anything
everybody
about it.
had.
How did all these breweries?
How do you
were
collaborate?
they all,
How
like,
do-
They showed up that day.
Like, hung
Drank
out?
beer together.
They drank
hung
beer.
out.
No, but Parkside, the funny thing was Parkside didn't get their logo in on time, or somebody didn't get the email for the Parkside logo. They were part of it. Parkside are really good guys, so I just hope they get that. I mention it only because I hope they get their due.
Yeah.
They will.
They will.
They're good guys.
They're good guys. But only that I was really excited, and you know I didn't like the beer.
I didn't like it either.
So, but
It's okay.
Meh.
Yeah.
But I mean, I agree with you. Like, I keep it in my fridge,
I threw half of
and,
it out.
Yeah, somebody
and
else
the
wants it, they can have
first
it.
buddy who wants it, like, I'll sit there and
for
drink with
sure.
them, and I'm happy to try it when someone says, "Hey, I want that," because give it another shot. Give it another shot.
I always give a beer at least 2 shots.
Yeah.
Always, because you never the first time. Sometimes you've always predetermined in your mind what you think it should taste like, depending on the brewery. You say, okay, this is Parallel 49. I expect this and this and this. So you have it, and you go.
And we do it in the best ways and the worst ways, and
I
it's
know.
always funny to hear like some breweries I love and I expect really good things out of, and I have their beer and it's not my favorite, and I still think, oh, I'll still order another one or something. But it's great when you have, you bring a friend by or you drink that beer again with a friend, and they're like, no, this beer is terrible or this beer is great, and you sort of rethink. And that's why experiences like this, where you share a bunch of beers with a bunch of people who all enjoy beer, are great, because you end up learning more that way.
There's also always cooking with beer.
Yes.
Right?
Always.
Sure.
You know, it's in your fridge. You're like,
And
I'm gonna
they're
make
great.
a pizza dough. I'm just gonna like dump some of that like IPA that's really
Yeah.
gross in
Or
there.
stews or anything.
This first IPA will make a great chicken dinner.
Honestly,
Unless it's got
anytime,
diacetyl, then you don't want it.
Well, but that butter flavor might be good in something.
Butter chicken.
boom.
Yeah.
Anytime a recipe calls for water, I use beer in place
Yeah.
of water because water has no flavor. Honestly, so I'll put beer in,
Why
and
not?
beer adds
Oh
a
man,
more
so I make
complex
a
flavor.
pizza dough with beer, and sometimes I open my fridge and they've only got really good beer, and I'm like, oh shit, like.
Time to look
I
for
guess there's gonna be a super flux pizza dough. I hope it turns out nice.
That's too
Whoa,
Never
Superflux.
do that.
I
Never.
just
super
well,
dough,
I don't. I don't
Super
make pizza
Super
dough.
dough. Super flex dough.
I really love my pizza dough with beer, right? Like it's how I've always been making it. So
Yeah.
like I don't make with water.
I'm
So
coming
like
to your
sometimes I
house.
open up and like,
You know what? Rule of thumb: my first girlfriend's stepdad was Italian. He's like, if you're not gonna drink it, you should not cook with it.
Agreed.
So only cook
No,
with.
totally disagree.
He's Italian though.
They started fascism.
No, I'm
That
not.
might have been a step too far.
Because cooking completely changes the.
It does. It does. I
It's
agree.
Adding so much.
But if
other
it
You
has
don't
a-
like it?
Yeah, but he's
Cook with it.
Italian.
If it has an off flavor,
I
that
don't know,
off
maybe
flavor
I'm
isn't
wrong.
going
It's
to
the
go
worst thing
away.
you
There's
have
off
to
flavor
do
for
it.
sure,
It's
but
good.
like
Yeah, you order
But if it's just a beer you
want
don't
a
like,
little bit of hops, a little bit of malts.
so you
You
just
know
get
that
it,
most of the
whatever.
hops are going to cook off.
Yeah.
So, but there really is a difference, I think, if you're used to making
better than
something
dumbing it
with
down the
beer
drain.
and then you make it with water, you do notice there's a little bit of an absence of flavor.
I think
What does everyone thoughts of the?
ending
The Grand Reserve.
Is
For
what?
me, I'm going to say
I wanna
2013
do,
versus 2014.
next year is the
And
municipal
2016
elections. I wanna
versus
run
2015.
council
I like
for
13 and
me,
15.
And I say I like 13 and 16.
I will
Wait.
cut that shit when I
So this
make
is-
that
yeah, no,
call
I
is
like
when that
these
shit
two.
ends.
That's
Yeah.
13 and 15. Those are my two faves.
13 is the
I
best
like the
for me.
13.
I like 13. It's really
But yeah,
I-
I agree.
I-
15 is quite tasty.
Yeah,
I like
was gonna say
15.
14, 15.
15 to me tastes festive. Something
It's
about
not-
it just has.
It's not hit like I can tell. I can
Get the
taste the
malt
difference
wine.
between 14, like 2013, 2014 are very similar. 2015, 2016
Yeah.
are very similar, but there's a definite break between
Yeah,
14
there
and
definitely
15.
Between the
is.
two, yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
I'd be very curious to learn, like, was there something different?
Did they do
used,
something, or is
right?
that just
Yeah.
its maturity point?
14 good.
Yeah, and out of the like the very new versus like the slightly less new, yeah, the 15 is still got that freshness and a little bit more carbonation, like a little bit more of that thin
Interesting.
body, but it's
Not
yeah.
on here the way they taste.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, because I don't know. I mean, I think I love the 13, but I think the next favorite is The most recent one.
You're good at saying
That's
nothing.
what I feel.
That's why I know
Yeah.
you do well
I
in council.
think I'm going 2013, 2016.
So what if you sat down in a pub and you ordered this beer and they didn't tell you that they were serving different beers? Would you be able to? Would you have picked this out?
Yes.
If you weren't sitting here like thinking it was the same beer,
Yeah.
like
Yeah, honestly, between the
Yeah.
13 and 14, I
There's
probably
def-
wouldn't have noticed. if
There's definitely a difference
they just served.
between this
And-
batch
yeah.
and this batch
Yeah,
for sure.
between these two, where that break point is, I would
Yeah.
have noticed. These two and these two, maybe not.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to notice if you just order the beer and you don't know the vintage because
No, it's still
you're not
going to taste
gonna
like
know.
a.
You're only going to know because you've got 4 side by side by side. You might go, oh, this is better than I remember, but
Or it's yeah.
or worse than I
You
remember.
don't think you
but
would
it-
notice the difference?
If I had like the
You
very
probably
extreme
will
ends,
notice-
maybe.
Yeah, you might know that it's a new bottle versus an old bottle, but I mean, how are you going to say this is a?
Yeah. If they told me
This is
there
a
was a
16,
difference, I'd be
right?
like, oh, yeah, so there's a
If
difference.
you've never had it, I don't know. It's really hard.
Because
You do like the blind.
these two
the blind
beers
taste
taste
test,
very
like
different to
Pepsi
me.
or Coke challenge.
All right, we have an extra
And
glass. Let's pour
these-
Carnell a random one when he's not looking.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
You guys,
I'm ready to have egg on my face. It'd be most of my life.
There's this one right here that doesn't seem to be
do it.
used. All right.
Turn around.
Close your eyes, Ed. Turn around.
Which one?
Just that one. Right there. Yeah.
Don't look yet.
Okay. Don't look.
He's looking.
He's totally looking. You're
He's
such
cheating
a
also.
cheater.
Am I?
That's why no one likes you.
Did you guys ever read the
Thought it was because
Here you go.
I pissed everyone off.
the so what's that?
You can open
What's
your
that
eyes now.
magazine about home brewing?
Homebrewers magazine.
Let's take a sip
That
of
one?
water first.
Homebrew
so you got a clean
magazine?
palate.
I don't know. I get it in the mail. My dad gave it to me. But there's this guy, the experimenter, and he always does like one beer brewed this way, one beer brewed this way, and his way of like deciding the difference is a triangulation test.
13.
And so often the triangulation test doesn't
15.
really work out.
15. Way off.
Way off.
So you've gone for the second batch.
Even on the other side of the break point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I'm an idiot.
Wasn't gonna say anything.
Well, I'm glad I talked out of my ass.
I hope Danny hears this episode.
Yeah.
It's just because it's cold and
It's listen to anything I do. So.
gloves. It's so real
It's
slippery,
called being in
man.
a relationship.
Yeah.
Feel my fingers.
I just hope she picks me up. It's cold out.
Oh, that's all.
All right.
It's on her way, right? Well, I'm
That's
just
a good
gonna.
episode now.
I think we can go.
Might as well just
Cheers.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Cheers, guys.
Lots of good beers.
What are you drinking?
Yeah, what is that? That was
I still have the, what was it?
Thanks for tuning into this episode. Find our show on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, YouTube, or your favorite podcast site or app at Pacific Beer Chat. Please leave us a review as it helps spread the word about the show and helps new listeners find our episodes. You can find Pacific Beer Chat on social media at Pacific Beer Chat on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Send us an email at feedback@pacificbeerchat.com with any feedback or comments. We'd love to hear from you. You can also find us at pacificbeerchat.com. We are part of the Hopped Up Network, an international craft beer podcast network. If you enjoy this craft beer focused show or any other craft beer focused shows, check out hoppedupnetwork.com. And thanks to Tim of craftbeertourist.com for designing our brand new logo. Thanks to Kevin Ems of Conundrum for allowing us to use the song Lothian in the intro to the podcast. You can find Conundrum on Instagram and Facebook at Music of Conundrum. You can also find them at conundrum-music.bandcamp.com. To play us out, here is the full version of Lothian. Cheers.
all of my marches through the dark. I found out so much then, so much more than I cared to know. I wanted you so badly by